The World Is Not Enough was the final Bond film of the 20th century, coming out in December 1999, and is of course notably being Q, played by Desmond, the final one of his Bond films, after playing Bond Q for 33 years, so a third of a century. So the opening sequence is definitely the longest opening sequence out of all the James Bond films. They were originally going to cut it off after this office scene, but since there was the boat chase next, they thought they may as well add that in, and they definitely agree, so they kept it in anyway. Now, similar to other Bond traditions, a Bond actor's third Bond film is often his best. I mean, Sean Connery, third Bond film, Goldfinger, was his best. I mean, Daniel Craig's third Bond film, Skyfall, was his best, and Roger Moore's third Bond film, The Spy Loved Me, was his best. I don't know if everyone would go as far as saying World Is Not Enough is Pierce Brosnan's best, some people would seem to say it was GoldenEye, but nevertheless, this is definitely a step up from Tomorrow Never Dies. Generally, the whole atmosphere and texture of the film is better. I forgot the name of what that type of bomb is that all the money is kept in. I think it's something called a textile bomb or a fertilised bomb. It's got something to do with very hard chemical compounds that I have no idea how they work. But anyway, it's quite an interesting story if you do know how they work, especially for a Bond film, opposed to just standard dynamite or grenades. The Cigar Girl returns, played by Maria Grazi, and of course, we mentioned James Bond was Pierce Brosnan was 46 years old at the time of this recording, so he still very much looks quite young in my opinion. And that's Cigar Girl from the Office is back, and we get probably the best chase sequence of the whole film. Bit of a shame the best chase sequence is of course before the pre-title sequence, so I mean, but you know, at least it does bring you into the film. I mean, World Is Not Enough definitely has that kind of anticlimactic atmosphere throughout the whole film, or sort of reverse anticlimactic, where there's loads of great action followed by a really bad climax that hasn't really got too much to offer. But I must say, this is probably got to be one of the best boats James Bond rides in all of his 25 films currently made. Absolutely amazing. I mean, the thing can like go underwater, it can go like 35 knots, it really is incredible. So this is our final ever Q, played by Desmond Llewellyn. His final ever kind of, you know, that Q scene where he gets given the gadgets or the car, and you know, one of the things that any James Bond fan can agree on is that it is just like a touching moment, because that is his final ever Bond film. And I know he actually died in a car crash just after this film was released. I think less than a week after this film was released, he died in a car crash. However, that would not have impacted it didn't impact whether he was going to return as Q or not, because indeed this was going to be his final Bond film. I mean, he was born in 1914, of course, 85 years old at the time. Yes, 85 years old at the time this film came out, so he definitely was getting on a bit, and he wanted to move on with his life and retire anyway. So yeah. However, that there is the next Q. I have not got his name yet because it's not on the cast list I'm looking at right now. But he comes back in the next film, Die Another Day. James Bond car in this film is yet again a German car, a BMW. Again, it just isn't right. It needs to be an Aston Martin, a Lotus, a British car. It needs to be one of them. But I think in this film it does work because it has a smaller role, so it is okay. Opposed to when it was in GoldenEye. Although the Tomorrow Never Dies BMW did actually work. James Bond gets, well, he doesn't know it yet, but this is Elektra, which will be the main villain played by Sophie Marco. A very good actor, don't really know much about her, I haven't really seen anything else apart from this, but then again I haven't really seen any acting in anything apart from James Bond films, that's the main film series I've only really ever watched. Although it is nice we get another skiing sequence, I mean, that's a good callback to On Her Majesty's Secret Service in 1969, which was actually 30 years old by the time this film came out. Funny I should mention that the film title, World Is Not Enough, is directed from James Bond's family tree motto, which was the world is not enough, seen in On Her Majesty's Secret Service. Interesting how like James Bond films are mostly named after either the mission of the film, of said plot, or something else James Bond has said or done several films back. So he gets to test out that coat Q gave him. The little like foam balls protect you from, well, shield you from anything. In that case it was an avalanche. A casino scene that rolled up. Honestly, it would have been nice to see Felix Leiter in the scene, but at least a returning character does come back. I have no idea how to pronounce his name though, but you all know who he is. It's Robbie Coltrane. I know how to pronounce his name, I don't know how to pronounce his character's name. He comes back, not just yet. I've jumped ahead slightly with the voiceover, not quite matching up with what you're seeing at the moment. Although that is again spy glasses to look at anything under any piece of clothing. Anyway, there he is there. Of course, he's mostly known as Harry Potter as Hagrid. But no, he's a very good actor, and I think it's very good. He returned back in this film. I think it works, as I'm not such a big fan of kind of always returning characters in Bond films, but in Robbie Coltrane's case, it definitely does work. I think the way you pronounce his name is Valentine Zukovsky. I don't know how to pronounce his surname. So we finally get an introduction of our main villain, Renard, played by Robert Carley. Very, very good actor, very, very good plot. He's sort of he's honestly very a sinister villain, because the way he kind of acts, and he's very slow and he's very quiet. He got shot in the head, as the story goes, but the way the bullet hit his head is kind of in the gap between those two parts of your brain, left and right side of his brain, so he was not affected at all by the shooting. James Bond meets the main sort of Bond girl of the film, which is Christmas Jones, played by Denise Richards. Not everyone actually likes her as the Bond girl for the film, but I think she's okay. I think she's pretty good. She's definitely better than the she feels kind of like a amp up from that woman from Diamonds Are Forever, who was a very bad James Bond girl, everyone can agree, but Christmas Jones, I think she's okay. And of course in this scene where Renard tells James Bond that Elektra is working with him. However, to make Elektra, although at this point James Bond does know Elektra is a villain, Elektra tries to make herself feel a bit innocent by blowing up her own pipeline with uranium, of course a nuclear weapon, a nuclear bomb. However, there was such a tiny amount of uranium that the bomb wasn't actually nuclear, and it was actually just a small bomb, really average bomb. But of course that would make her look innocent, and then her job, Renard, is basically to cut off all the oil pipelines, and then they all have to use just one pipeline and they get all the money. Of course it's too late, and actually Judy Dench, again very, very good actor, has a very good leading role in this, of actually being like captured by Elektra and the villains. It's really good. I mean, again, I couldn't really have pictured Bernard Lee, the other M, doing this, so I think Judy Dench definitely does pick up M's role very much during the late 20th century. Honestly, the more I look back on this scene with the helicopter and the kind of like chainsaw, the less I like it. It isn't too brilliant, but it's not exactly terrible. It's kind of doable. It's kind of like average for a Bond film, nothing too amazing. Thanks to that GPS tracker James Bond now has, which he also gave one to M, which we'll find out in a minute what he uses that for. He works out where Renard's lair is, and he goes over there. This is the moment where the film producers didn't want to make it too much like Tomorrow Never Dies, with, James Bond goes into a villain's lair. It gets blown up. Personally, honestly, I like that kind of thing where just the classic, he goes in, blows up the lair. Personally, I like the filmmaker didn't want to make it too much like Tomorrow Never Dies, which up until this point has done very, very well. However, all they've really done is, rather than it being on a boat, it's on a submarine, so not really too much diversity. And it's just kind of like James Bond and Renard fighting out rather than like a whole, mob of people like with Tomorrow Never Dies. So Valentine is not actually dead, which I think is really, really quite good. And then he comes back, he shoots that other man who betrayed him, and with his cane, honestly, I love it. It's a really great, honestly, if I could buy the prop, I would probably buy it. It's a cane which has like a kind of pull-out kind of trigger, which has a gun in it, and it's just, I love it when they do that, kind of like they put a gun and a sword kind of thing. Not even that, I just like the way the hammer came back and kind of just the way it looks. It's good. So the final climax sequence is on the submarine, and it involves James Bond basically just trying to stop Renard blowing up uranium. Honestly, pretty anticlimactic. I'm not a huge fan of this. Like I said, the more I watch it, the more kind of underwhelmed I definitely do get with this. Well, there's not enough title sequence. Well, Enough Not has actually got a good song played by Garbage. That's pretty good. But no, I would probably want a bit better than this. It's just very kind of average. There's nothing really that picks it up. Bit of a fight scene, it's just everything's just too predictable in my opinion. So Renard is now dead, blows up the submarine, and that's it, and we get December 31st, 1999, the final day of Until the New Millennium, and it's a very good way to end the Bond scene. This is sort of the end, but also not really in the beginning of the year, or also not really. Thank you very much for watching, goodbye.